Amphibians are part of the reptile hobby, like it or not, and they're fascinating, but according to this video and this video, you think they kind of suck. So today, let me tell you about 5 amazing amphibians that you'll actually want to keep as a pet. My name's Adam, this is Diamond, you're watching Wickens Wicked Reptiles, stick around. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is amphibians are amazing, and for whatever reason, every time I do a video about frogs or salamanders or whatever, people don't watch them. You should. Oh, before we do, I'm aware amphibians are not reptiles, but just like, I don't know, it just goes with the hobby, okay? Amphibians are part of the reptile hobby. I don't care if you don't like it, that's just part of how it goes. So, anyway, here are the 5 best amphibians that make the best pets that I think you're really gonna like to have, or at least I'm gonna try to sell you on them. Number 5, spadefoot toads. What the heck is a spadefoot toad, you might ask, if you haven't been watching this channel since 2020 and I used to pump them like I was getting paid to. Basically a spadefoot toad, the North American ones we're talking about, I think there's 6 or 7 different species, and they're a small toad that look kind of similar to American toads, which also make great pets by the way, but spadefoot toads have really cool adaptations. Although they're about the same size, or a little bit smaller maybe, than an American toad, what they do have in comparison to American toads is these appendages or little projections on their back feet that look like, well, spades, that help them dig into very tough soil and dirt. I have a couple spadefoot toads, and I love them. I think they're super cool. Now, of course, these aren't the best for viewing. If you're looking for an amphibian that's going to be hopping around and really interactive, these aren't for you. In fact, some of these, you'll probably never see them. It's like having a box of dirt. It depends. When you feed them, they'll come up. If you water them or spray them, they'll come up. There's a few different species that live in parts of Arizona where they'll actually live underneath a lake, and then when it rains, they'll come up, they'll breed, and then they'll go back down, and that's it. That's basically their entire life cycle, is hiding in dirt underneath a lake. Now, if you don't know, all toads are frogs, but not all frogs are toads. So these are technically frogs, right? So they are amphibious, they are amphibians, they're gonna breed in the water, they're going to need water, standing water, they're gonna need moist soil, because they are gonna be able to take that in through their skin. But no, if you kiss the toad, first of all, it's not gonna turn into a prince, and you're not gonna get warts. So you're totally safe to handle these things in moderation. Clean your hands first, because amphibians can take in detergents through their skin. That cricket is driving me insane. Number 4, let's stick with frogs here, and I'm talking about tree frogs. Now, not all tree frogs. I think there are some really, really good ones though. For example, red-eyed tree frogs, dumpy tree frogs. Those are the main ones that I'm gonna talk about because those are the ones that I think are the best, because red-eyed tree frogs and dumpy tree frogs aren't as prone to getting infections in their skin, which is something that can definitely happen with frogs. They do really, really well in environments where they're bioactive, so bioactive planted enclosures, which is what I really like to do. And it just depends. Do you want a smaller frog? Get a red-eyed tree frog. Do you want a larger frog? Get a dumpy. Because White's tree frogs, or dumpy tree frogs, or Australian tree frogs, same thing, they are much larger. They're one of the biggest species of tree frog in the entire world. They're amazing. I love them. I think that they're one of the coolest species because they eat like crazy things. So I love White's tree frogs. I think that they're really cool. But if you want something that's maybe more iconic, like literally I have a red-eyed tree frog tattooed on me, okay? So I do love these animals quite a bit. And red-eyed tree frogs are iconic. When you think of places like Costa Rica, you think of red-eyed tree frogs. The first animal I found in the wild in Costa Rica was a red-eyed tree frog. And both do really well in these planted enclosures, so you can have a piece of art in your house. Now there's some other really good ones too, like Amazon milk tree frogs, I think are one of my favorite as well, because they're blue on the inside, they make a really cool call, they're easy to take care of, they can deal with a lot of temperature fluctuation. But no matter what, if you want a new world tree frog or an old world tree frog, you're not gonna go wrong with these 3 species. Now you wanna stay away from maybe more advanced ones like Crusiohyla, the fringe leaf tree frogs, but besides that, I think you're good to go with a lot of different species. Number 3, something you've probably never heard of, very obscure, Spanish ribbed newts. Spanish ribbed newts come from, well, Spain, Morocco, Portugal, places like that. Now they're very similar to axolotls in a lot of respects. And there are differences between newts and salamanders, but all newts are salamanders, not all salamanders are newts. So basically, what the difference is the skin type. They morph out a little bit differently. For example, newts are going to spend a lot of their adult life in the water, where salamanders usually don't. The skin is a little bit rougher on newts, things like that. But we're not here for that. Spanish ribnoots are fully aquatic. These animals are going to be in the water all the time. And Spanish ribnoots do really well in these kind of paludariums where you have multiple different species. For example, if you wanted to have red-eyed tree frogs and anoles, and maybe you have some dart frogs on the bottom that are big enough that they're not going to be predated on by the other species, so terribilis, things like that, and then Spanish ribnoots in the water, you could do something like that. Now, obviously, do your research, and I know there's going to be people in the comments, never cohab, cohab is bad. Watch this video right here as you're on your rocking chair. Anyway, moving on, I think that Spanish ribnoots are cool too because they have this really cool adaptation where they can actually break their ribs through their skin when a predator tries to eat them. So they're going to stick into that predator's mouth. It's going to be really uncomfortable, and a lot of the times they're going to get away like that. Not only that, but they can regenerate limbs, which is really cool, just like axolotls. And Spanish ribnoots, unlike axolotls, aren't basically extinct in the wild. So, very cool species. Number 2, tiger salamanders. Now, tiger salamanders aren't something that I have personal experience with, but I know a lot of people who have them, and it's probably the most prevalent or most, popular salamander out there. Now, they're native to North America, they're really easy to find captive bred, and they're not that expensive. Not only that, there's a few different species, but some of them are super vibrant, big, yellow, black, bold type animals that, of all the salamanders out there, are probably the cutest because they're derpy little faces. They're carnivorous, so in the wild, they're gonna eat things not only like slugs and insects, but also small snakes like baby ringneck snakes. They've been seen eating small toads, small frogs. These things will fit anything in their mouth that they can and digest it, including other salamanders. So never put these guys together unless you're breeding and really, really know what you're doing. You don't want to cohab tiger salamanders. I'm promising you, it's going to be a bad day. One of them is going to go missing like a magician. You don't want that to happen to your salamander. They're not that big. We're talking 6 to 8 inches. They have good lifespans, 12 to 15 years. Where a lot of amphibians have shorter lifespans, these guys will last a long time as long as you do the upkeep and whatever else. Now, in terms of amphibians, they're not as susceptible to skin conditions and fungus and stuff like that as other species are. So they're pretty hardy, pretty easy to take care of. One of my favorite salamanders to look at. Something that I am an amphibian guy, but I really like frogs, and it's not something I'd probably keep myself. Just because, you need a more terrestrial setup, a little bit longer, a little bit bigger. And for me, if I'm going to do that, I'd rather have number 1 on the list. And number 1, my favorite amphibian and one that makes an amazing pet, dart frogs. I freaking love dart frogs. They're amazing. They're so fun. They're so cool. There's so many varieties of them and species. The enclosures are amazing. And because they're small and cohabitable, if you wanted to have a big enclosure that's really well planted and beautiful in and of itself, and you could just look at this and it could be enough, then you can put in dart frogs. And dart frogs are so small, they're not going to ruin the plants. They're not going to eat the plants. They're just going to hop around. I always say they're jumping Skittles because you can have black and yellow ones. I have a Leucomella tattooed on me, okay? I love these frogs. Leucomellas are my favorite. Terribilis are great too. I do really like the mint Terribilis. There's smaller ones like the Santa Isabellas, which I have, which if you've watched the videos and you hear frogs calling, it's always the Santa Isabellas. There's thumbnail dart frogs, Redimatemea. I can't pronounce anything. You don't watch this channel because I'm smart. There's a whole bunch of different ones. Dendrobates auratus are some of my favorite too. Then there are the obligates, which are the pumilios, which I really like as well. So they might be my favorite amphibian of all time ever. And I've always thought dart frogs are really cool. Not only that, but just the history of them, how they got their name, where natives to the area of Central and South America would literally poison darts for hunting and for protection using these animals. Now, poison dart frogs aren't poisonous in captivity as long as they're captive bred, or if they're wild caught, it's been several months, because the way that it works is their liver metabolizes the... I'm not smart enough to use the actual language. I'm sure Matt will put a thing right here. Thanks, editor Matt. Appreciate you. Basically, the stuff inside of the insects gets metabolized by their liver and creates a toxin in their skin. So for example, Terribilis, terrible dart frogs, if you pop one of those in your mouth, bad news bears, you're going to be dead quick time. There are other species that aren't quite as potent, but either way, in the wild, you don't want to be touching poison dart frogs. In captivity, you're totally fine. Still don't eat your dart frogs. I recommend, do not eat your dart frogs. Those are my top 5 best amphibians that do not suck. I want to see yours in the link below or the description or the comment section. That's where you write comments. Please let me know. And as always, please hit like and subscribe if you love videos like this. It helps the channel so much. And a special thanks to the Patreon supporters. You guys get videos early, extra videos, you know about trips that are coming up, all that and more for as little as $1 a month. I appreciate you guys. Oh, and by the way, just like as a side note, thank you guys so much for 300,000 subscribers. I can't even believe that's a real thing that happened. So anyway, because I do videos on Mondays and Thursdays, that means I'll see you in the next one.